Inspector General of Police orders all personnel of defunct SARS back to force headquarters for debriefing, psychological and medical examination.
The TSA implementation, adjudged to be today the best in Africa, is also being strengthened.
Defense and Human Capital Development prioritized in 2021 budget. Finance Minister breaks down document as legislators begin debate. Nationwide grassroots engagement towards ending security challenges kicks off with Northeast Pilot State.
This is the evidence. Unless we come together and cooperate, we'll just suffer for nothing.
Plus, time to intensify cooperation towards enthronement of a new National Working Committee for APC. President Buhari tasked members as re-elected Governor Akeredolu is unveiled. Good evening and welcome to the Network News live on the Nigerian Television Authority. I am Ienre in Abuja. I'm not alone tonight. Dotun Oguyemi will be reading from our Lagos Network Center. Thanks for joining us. We begin with security tonight, as President Muhammadu Buhari has received the clarion call from youths that are protesting in different parts of the country on the End SARS Now. The letter from the youths was delivered to the president by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. The governor, while briefing the media, says the president, who graciously accepted the letter, promised to act on the demands of the youths that will lead to a vibrant police force.
Part of the takeaway for me is that all the governors are on the same page. We're having a governors forum meeting tomorrow. The IG will be briefing us at that meeting, and further clear directives and decisions will be taken by all the governors. I cannot begin to share what those decisions will be, but I can tell you, and on behalf of all of our youths that are out there, that Mr. President has listened. Your letter is documented, it has received attention, and he has assured me that all of the things that you have said there will see how they begin to implement them almost immediately. And like I did mention earlier today in Lagos, we had indeed pushed ahead to implement the first two and the third one, which I needed the approval, just so that we can put these things behind us.
Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has ordered all personnel of the defunct SARS to report at the force headquarters, Abuja, for debriefing, psychological and medical examination. The process becomes necessary to train and reorientate the personnel before redeployment to mainstream policing duties. A statement by the force headquarters indicates that the medical examination will be carried out by a newly set up police counseling and support unit, which shall henceforth engage in psychological management, reorientation and training of officers deployed for tactical operations and other duties. Meanwhile, the IGP has set up a new special weapons and tactics team that will fill the gap arising from the dissolution of the defunct SARS. Prospective members of the new team will also undergo psychological and medical examination to ascertain their fitness and eligibility for the new assignment nationwide. And away from SARS, now talking politics. After a successful outing at the Ondo gubernatorial election, President Muhammadu Buhari has urged members of the All Progressives Congress to wake up and work in unity towards the enthronement of a new national chairman and national working committee of the party. The president stated this when he hosted party executives who were in the villa to present Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu and his deputy, Lucky Ayedatiwa, to the president. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
The exchange of the new normal elbow greetings by President Muhammadu Buhari and the APC national executives, expressing the excitement that follows the victory of the party in the just concluded Ondo State gubernatorial election. The certificate of return from INEC presented to the re-elected Governor Rotimi Akeredolu and his deputy in the election, Lucky Ayedatiwa, as well as the certificate presented to the party, are proof that the party had a good fight in the election.
See, this is the evidence. Unless we come together and cooperate, we'll just suffer for nothing.
And concerned about the wranglings in the party, President Muhammadu Buhari urges the party executives to ensure that no member of the party from ward to national level is left behind. That is the way to go, the president says. Re-elected Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, Chairman APC National Caretaker Committee, May Malabuni, thanked the president for his support.
Express our appreciation, especially to you, Mr. President, for the love you have shown to us in all ramifications.
Throughout the processes from the primaries to the electioneering campaign and to the election, you keep encouraging us, and your guidance helped us to see to this victory which we are today celebrating.
The delegation also paid similar thank you visit to Vice President Yemi Osinbajo.
We have a lot of roads that are ongoing, but principally because we are concerned about connecting Ondo State to global economy. So we are determined to ensure that we have port declaration so that Port Ondo will be the icing of whatever efforts we have made in Ondo State.
We all realized that we needed to work together, work collaboratively, right, and share information so that, in a football match, ensure that you don't have any weak link. And that was the strategy we went to Ondo with. And we're thankful that we were very successful. And the real success is actually to the Ondo people.
Among the delegation are Chairman of the APC Governors Forum, Atiku Bagudu, and Chairman Nigerian Governors Forum, Kayode Fayemi, as well as members of the APC National Campaign Council for Ondo State gubernatorial election. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
And still on the Ondo election, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has presented certificates of return to the winner of the October 10 governorship election in Ondo State, Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, and the Deputy Governor-elect, Lucky Ayedatiwa. The presentation was carried out in the presence of APC leadership and other stakeholders. Abiola Ario reports.
National Commissioner in charge of Lagos, Ogun and Ondo States, Dr. Adekunle Ogunmola, presided over the presentation of certificates of return to Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu and the Deputy Governor-elect, Lucky Ayedatiwa. INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner, Ondo State, Rufus Akeju, says the Commission will continue to consolidate on the high level of commitment and transparency recorded in both the governorship elections in Edo and Ondo States.
The Independent National Electoral Commission will continue to build on the high level of credibility it has achieved so far.
The Governor, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, said his re-election was made possible by the people of the state who decided to renew the mandate given in 2016 due to the confidence they reposed in him.
The victory is on the people of the state. And I want to pray to the people of the state that the trust of those of us will continue to do our best to serve them in the way that they are supposed to do.
APC chieftains in the state and other party supporters were on ground to witness the presentation. In Akure, Abiola Ario, NTA News.
Now looking at the economy, Ministry of Defense gets highest recurrent expenditure in 2021 budget as Nigeria increases investment in national security and human capital development. Minister of Finance and Budget and National Planning, while presenting the breakdown of the 13.08 trillion naira proposed budget, says reforms are accompanying the document to critically address present revenue challenges. Leah Katung Babatunde completes the story.
The 2020 budget, which became effective January 1, was revised mid-year due to disruptions to the macroeconomic environment posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. 2020 will see the global economy contract by 4.9% as projected by the IMF, Sub-Saharan Africa 3.2% and Nigeria 4.2% as projected by the National Bureau of Statistics. The 2021 budget of economic recovery and resilience seeks to reposition the economy for growth, and already initiatives have been put in place to improve revenues.
The integrated revenue monitoring system is designed to ease revenue recognition. E-Customs, approved by the Federal Executive Council, and ITAS, that is being implemented by the Federal Inland Revenue, are also being implemented. The TSA implementation, adjudged to be today the best in Africa, is also being strengthened. We have also put in place specific provisions that help to promote social inclusion, with the exemption of small businesses from certain category of taxes.
Currently, for every 10,000 tons of food that is produced, about 4,000 to 6,000 is lost. It doesn't get to the market. And so we saw this as a low-hanging fruit and decided to provision to ensure that food that is produced can get indeed to the market, and that we can encourage investors to come up with value chain or value-adding industries around the agricultural corridor.
Expenditure is put at 13.08 trillion naira, comprising statutory transfers, sinking funds, debt service, non-debt recurrent expenditure, and capital expenditure. Revenue is projected at 7.886 trillion naira, with deficit put at 5.196 trillion naira inclusive of income from 60 government-owned enterprises and project-tied loans, a first of its kind.
13.08 trillion of expenditure includes 1.35 trillion naira of expenditures by those 60 government-owned enterprises.
The Federal Ministry of Works, Finance, Budget and National Planning and Health top the proposed capital allocation list in that order, with critical allocations to education and health. The parameters and fiscal assumptions for the budget proposal include an oil benchmark of $40, daily oil production put at 1.86 million barrels per day, an exchange rate of 379 naira to the dollar, 3% GDP growth, and 11.95% inflation rate. In Abuja, Leah Babatunde, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Senate has commenced the second reading of the 2021 appropriation bill with emphasis on the need to reverse Nigeria's infrastructural deficit. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Unko reports.
5 days after President Muhammadu Buhari led the 2021 budget of 13.08 trillion naira before members of the National Assembly, the Senate has commenced its consideration. In the 2021 budget of economic recovery and resilience, statutory transfers has 484.4 billion naira, debt servicing 3.3 trillion naira, recurrent non-debt 5.6 trillion, while capital expenditure received 3.6 trillion naira. Senate has kicked off debate on the general principles of the appropriation bill.
All the parameters we were discussed and agreed upon, at least in principle. What remains for us is to closely examine the contents and the details in order to sort things out and smoothen the rough edges.
And once it's long-time borrowing, this borrowing will help to resort to rebuild the economy and put back people to work. We've always had with our budget. Is that what the minority leader previously mentioned? That is achieving our projections.
To bring back growth, small and medium enterprises are the key to most of the country's economic growth. And programs that have been designed in these particular areas are very apt.
The legislators underscored the essence of improved budget implementation in 2021 fiscal year. They commended the increment in the allocation of health, agriculture and education.
So I believe that implementation of our budget is as
critical as the budget itself.
We will agree that this budget is a budget that is workable, is a budget that is achievable. Yes, we may not in the final analysis say, okay, we have achieved maybe 100%.
We believe that if we are able to prevent and stop these excesses of illegal mining, illegal extraction of our solid minerals, the revenue will shoot up.
It has been a very good debate.
Senate received executive communication from President Muhammadu Buhari requesting the consideration of the proceeds of Crime Bill 2020 as it confirmed the appointment of 8 justices of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, which has now increased the total number of Supreme Court justices to 20. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
And still in the National Assembly, the House of Representatives has commenced debate on the general principles of the 2021 appropriation bill presented by the President last Thursday before a joint session. The National Assembly correspondent Ienre reports that the lawmakers during the debate expressed optimism on allocations to the various sectors.
The debates, which lasted several hours, saw House members across board commending the foresight of federal government in the proposed 13.08 trillion naira 2021 budget, a significant part of which is allocated to capital expenditure. This, they say, will fast-track economic growth, which was slowed down by the coronavirus pandemic in 2020 the world over.
2021 Appropriation Act have been put at a relatively conservative rate so that no challenge, economic or otherwise, will be forced against the implementation of this budget that is tagged to be a budget of economic recovery and resilience.
When the rail from Lagos to Kano is completed, it will address some of the challenges we have, the banditry and the rest, because our young people will become fully engaged.
We contributed so much, more especially in the rice production. 60–70% of the rice we eat in this country come from my states. The bridge that connects my states, the Kebbi State and Niger Republic, it has collapsed, Mr. Speaker.
The lawmakers commended allocations to critical areas towards infrastructure development and social investment programs for youth employment.
We have 3.9 expenditure for capital expenditure alone, which is also higher than the previous years.
The ratio of capital to debt servicing is still too close.
Other contributions noted discouraging performance of some revenue-generating agencies and called for more efficiency.
Why is our revenue not dynamic revenue generation? Why is it standing where it is? If we have increased tax, if we have increased VAT, that equally added to the hardship of Nigerian people.
If revenue generating agencies declare their revenue on time, those budgets, the capital projects will be funded in the first quarter and second quarter. It won't be the third quarter or even the fourth quarter that implementation will start.
The Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, says the House will consider penalties on agencies that flout provisions of the appropriation bill.
We just look at the appropriation law as a document. It's a law, like any other law. And if you look at your laws have consequences embedded in them, penalties embedded in them. And so I think we should look at adequate penalties for erring agencies or personalities who flout the law.
The debate continues Wednesday. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
In other news, OPEC says world oil demand will rebound more slowly in 2021 than previously thought as coronavirus cases rise. Lydia Sampson reports.
OPEC in its monthly report says, adding to headwinds faced by OPEC members and its allies in balancing the market, demand will rise by 6.54 million barrels per day next year to 96.84 million barrels per day. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries said in a monthly report the growth forecast is 80,000 barrels per day, less than expected a month ago. Oil prices have collapsed as the coronavirus crisis curtailed travel and economic activities. While in the third quarter, an easing of lockdown allowed demand to recover, OPEC sees the pace of economic improvement slowing down again. The report says while the third quarter recovery in some economies was impressive, in the near term, market trend remains fragile and a variety of ongoing uncertainties, especially the near-term trajectory of COVID-19. As this uncertainty looms large amid a globally strong rise in infection, it is expected that the considerable recovery in the third quarter will continue into the fourth quarter and into 2021. OPEC has steadily lowered its 2021 oil demand growth forecast from an initial 7 million barrels per day expected in July. OPEC and OPEC Plus also cut its estimate of world oil demand in the current quarter by 220,000 barrels per day. It left its estimate of the scale of this year's historic contraction in oil use at 9.47 million barrels per day. To tackle the drop in demand, OPEC and its allies, known as OPEC Plus, agreed to a record supply quote starting on May 1st, while the United States and other nations said they will pump less. In the report, OPEC said its output fell by 50,000 barrels per day to 24.11 million barrels per day in September. In Abuja, Lydia Samson, NTA News.
Relief for victims of flood and rainstorm, as well as displaced persons. Details in the second part of tonight's news this day. Borno State, as part of the nationwide security interaction with Borno being the pilot state. Yagumsu Bukar reports.
Leader of the delegation, Minister of Interior, Raouf Aregbeshola, in company of Minister of Police Affairs, Megari Dingyai, among other key stakeholders in the security apparatus, were in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, as part of the nationwide security interaction, with Borno being the pilot state, where it will interface with relevant stakeholders and work out modalities to bring to an end the insecurity.
The tenacity of Professor Zulu and the zeal and passion with which the President gave us this charge to be here, there must be a difference.
We assured the people of Borno State and Nigerians in general that this situation is going to be improved.
While on a courtesy visit to Borno State Governor, the delegation led by the minister said they were in the state at the instance of the President to have a feel of the challenges confronting the state so as to find solutions. Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Umar Zulum said the interaction would not have come at a better time than now that the state is faced with reoccurrence of attacks by the insurgents, stressing that there is need to address the root cause of insurgency.
The entire Northeast lost a total sum of about $9 billion to the insurgents.
Professor Babagana Umara then appealed for recruitment of indigenous of Borno into police and Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, as well as improve on their condition of service to boost their morale for optimal performance. In Maiduguri, Yagum Subkar, NTA News.
Project Reliance of the federal government targeting to empower 350,000 internally displaced persons has been flagged off in Borno State. The project, which is jointly supported by the Federal Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons and Central Bank of Nigeria, is to train IDPs in 50 different trades and businesses. Mohammed Goni reports that Governor Babagana Umar Zulum flagged off the intervention at Muna IDP's camp, Maiduguri.
The empowerment program commenced with verification of internally displaced persons from all the local government areas across the state, after which they will be trained in different trades and businesses of their choice and will be provided with starter kits and take-up grant. The 50 trades and businesses include tailoring, poultry farming, bricklaying, and fishing, as well as hairdressing, among others. Governor Bagana Umar said the program could not have come at a better time than now, as the state government is committed to returning the IDPs to their ancestral home.
In terms of resettlement and rehabilitation of thousands of IDPs, is by no means an easy task. Government alone cannot accomplish it without the assistance of well-spirited individuals and organizations.
Federal Commissioner for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, Senator Bashir Garba Muhammad noted the devastation caused by the insurgency in Borno.
Our focus on ensuring a strong, lasting solution to the issue of accessible livelihoods was born out of Mr. President's desire that the government alleviates the long suffering faced by vulnerable people in Nigeria.
Representatives of the CBN Governor, Anthony Ikechukwu, assured continued support of the CBN towards success of the program. Shehu of Borno, Abubakar Ibn Umar Garba El Kanemi, appreciated the Commission and the CBN for the intervention, but however appealed for more support as the state has suffered a lot due to insurgency. In Maiduguri, Mahmoud Goni, NTA News.
And away from Borno now, the federal government has donated relief materials to victims of flood and rainstorm disasters in Kwara State. The intervention materials were handed over to the Kwara State government by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk, and received by the state governor. Aisha Abubakar Yahaya reports.
The intervention is President Muhammadu Buhari's response to incidents of flood and rainstorm disasters in parts of the country. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadia Umar Farouk, said the federal government activated the National Emergency Management Agency to respond promptly by providing necessary support to affected persons.
I'm here today to convey the sympathy of the federal government to the government and people of Kwara State over the unfortunate rainstorm and flooding incident that occurred in some local government areas of the state.
3 local government areas, namely Edu, Patigi and Moro, affected by flood, and Ilorin West, Ilorin East, Ilorin South, Asa and Ifelodu local government areas affected by rainstorm are the beneficiaries of the relief materials in Kwara State.
We appreciate the quantity, and it goes a long way in mitigating the problem.
For the food store, at least it will sustain me and my family for some time.
I am very happy. I pray that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari and that of Governor Abdurrahman Abdurazak will continue to succeed.
The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, in company of Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Senator representing Kwara Central Constituency, Senator Olori Egbe, and the Director General of NEMA had earlier paid a courtesy visit to the State Governor at the Government House. Aisha Abubakar Yahaya, NTA.
President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated businessman and philanthropist Chief Emeka Offor on receiving the Sun Newspaper Humanitarian Award, describing his nomination as well-deserved. According to the president, Chief Offor has dedicated himself to humanitarian service, including the eradication of polio and river blindness, hence urging other wealthy men in the country to emulate his noble deeds, as the use of one's wealth to touch the lives of others in society is one of the greatest demonstrations of selflessness and compassion. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President, Garba Shehu, says Chief Offor will have his name etched in gold by posterity as a result of his philanthropic activities. Now, talking education. President Muhammadu Buhari has reiterated the commitment of the present administration to collaborate and encourage individuals and organizations in revamping tertiary education in the country. The president stated this in a message to the groundbreaking ceremony of Asalam Global University, Hadejia, Jigawa State. Bashir Ibrahim Nababa reports.
An initiative of the Islamic organization Jama'atu Izalatul Bid'ah wa Iqamatus Sunnah, Aslam Global University is situated in Hadejia town, about 130 kilometers away from Dutse, the Jigawa state capital. The establishment of the university was conceived to bridge the gap in tertiary education, especially in the northwest geopolitical zone of the country, by providing the youth with required qualifications, access to Islamic and Western education. Laying the foundation of the university, the Sultan of Sokoto and President General, Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, Muhammad Saad Abubakar, urges the university authority to make admissions into the institution open to all, not a particular religious sect or section of the society, in line with global best practices. President Muhammadu Buhari, represented by the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. Ali Pantami, pledges to support construction of the university for its smooth takeoff.
Mr. President has appreciated this, and he also directed me to inform the leadership that you will be part and parcel of this project, inshallah.
The national chairman, Jama'atu Izalatul Bid'ah wa Iqamatus Sunnah, Sheikh Abdullahi Balalo, maintains that the university is not limited to the Muslim community, but candidates who meet standards set by the institution's management and tertiary education regulatory bodies. Apart from other supports, the donation of 115 hectares of land by Jigawa State government plays a vital role in the execution of the project in Hadejia. From Dutse, Bashir Ibrahim Nababa, NTA News.
Government will continue to be responsive and ensure provision of all that is required to make academic environment safe and conducive for teaching and learning. This is the position of the Minister of State Education, Chukwuemeka Wanjoba, at a meeting with Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, that has been on strike since March 2020.
We are on the verge of having our visitation panels to your schools, which will then inform us a bit more as to actions that need to be taken. But I will extend your plea, the plea that you have made for our schools to resume and to resume safely. Let's just first of all return to our classes, return our students to school, and in the course of that, all other things, let us first seek the kingdom of reopening, and then all other things will be added onto it.
President of the Union, Anderson Ezeibe, appealed to government to look into its demands, some of which include non-release of fund since 2014 to address content of needs assessment study of polytechnics, non-release of arrears of new minimum wage in the federal polytechnics, and refusal by states to implement same. Poor implementation of IPPRS, as well as continued appointment of a retired staff as rector of federal polytechnics. President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, has continued with engagement towards an amicable resolution of the lingering industrial conflict between government and Academic Staff Union of Universities. At a meeting between the leadership of the Senate and the Accountant General of the Federation, Ministers of Labour and Education, which later dissolved into a closed-door session, Senator Lawan reiterated his position that all parties involved in the ongoing ASU government face-off over the adoption of the new salary template invented by ASU should settle for a mutual concession.
It's an ill will that blows nobody any good. Our students, our children, brothers and sisters have been at home. We believe that they should be in school. It's beyond education. It borders on security as well.
It must have to pass an integrity test. So it will go to the users, the Accountant General and the Office handling IPs for demonstration tomorrow. We are continuing next week.
The leadership of Academic Staff Union of Universities was later admitted into the meeting for further negotiations. Let's pause here in Abuja and let Datu feed us with more stories from his end in Lagos. Datu?
Thank you, Ienre. 3 days after a building collapsed in Obalende in Lagos, state emergency responders have begun ridding the scene of debris. Adeola Komiakere reports on the unfortunate incident that claimed 8 lives.
On arrival at the scene, men and equipment from the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency were already clearing the debris from the collapsed structure at 62 Odo Street, Obalende.
People come here, come eat, enter. After they enter, neither has fall.
The pillars, the small pillar that was put on the building is not up to what will carry the decking.
They have put the first decking, they put the second one. So on Sunday they are trying to put the third one. That's how the building collapsed with people. We rescue about 10 people alive and 7 dead.
NTA News gathered that about 28 casualties were recorded, out of which 2 were females. The unfortunate incident led to the deaths of 8 persons, including the developer of this unfortunate structure. 10 people who sustained minor injuries were said to have been treated on the spot and discharged, while 10 other persons who had major injuries were taken to the hospital. Samples from the debris have been collected by the Lagos State Building Control Agency and Lagos State Material Testing Laboratory to ascertain the remote cause of the collapsed structure. The building, which collapsed on Sunday afternoon, was said to be a 3-story building under construction, and it caved in at about 4:30 p.m. while work was still going on. In Lagos, Adeola Komiakere, NTA News.
Following last week's clash among groups in Ikorodu community, which occurred in Igbo Olomu West Local Council Development Area of Lagos State, the State Commissioner of Police, Akim Odumusu, has met with the warring parties in a bid to broker peace. Nosa Usla completes the story.
The Lagos State Commissioner of Police organized a reconciliatory meeting which was witnessed by the chairman of Ikorodu West LCDA, the leader of the LCDA arm of government, and community leaders from the Yoruba and Hausa communities. The Commissioner of Police appealed to them to tolerate one another and embrace peace in order to promote mutual coexistence in the axis.
For some time now, there have been crises as a result of mere misunderstanding, and that one led to altercations and disagreements.
The two groups condemned the ugly incident and agreed to reconcile and embrace peace after the meeting, while the Commissioner of Police assured them of creating a police post after due consultation with the LCDA chairman in the area to take policing to their doorsteps and cater for their security needs.
It's a very good thing for us, and I hope this kind of a thing will never occur.
We thank God that CP is here, being on top of the case. We are happy.
The chairman of Ikorodu West LCDA appreciated the Commissioner of Police for his time and commitment to the maintenance of law and order in the state. In Lagos, Nosa Ostula, NTA News.
Let's now take a break. Network news will continue in Abuja after the timeout.
Protect and protect your home with Jig. Jig kills 99.9% of illness.
Has declared Musa Muhammad, the authentic president of the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria, bringing an end to the dispute which has been rocking the association. The court gave the judgment Tuesday in Abuja. Olabode Arewa has more.
Two people, Shehu Sowele, Ienre Sapawan, and Musa Muhammad, had laid claim to the presidency of the Transport Union. The former president, Sowele, was removed and expelled in 2018 from the union, prompting him to file this suit challenging his removal by the union's executive and subsequent replacement by his deputy, Musa Muhammad. The former secretary of the union, Ienre Sapawan, had also filed a suit insisting that he ought to have been recognized as the union's president. After reviewing arguments canvassed by the claimants, the court held that Isewele's expulsion was valid and that Musa Muhammad's appointment was in line with the union's constitution.
Very powerfully delivered, an incisive one for that matter. In fact, it has resolved the whole issue surrounding the leadership tussle of the Road Transport Employers Association of Nigeria today.
We'll be testing the decision on appeal. That one we have made our minds up on it.
We are not satisfied with that judgment, and we are zooming to the court of appeal because we saw so many glaring errors.
The victory is not for only me, it's for all Retians members throughout the nation.
The court also dismissed Ienre's claim to the presidency on the grounds that the removal by the union's executive was not in breach of the union's constitution. In Abuja, Olabode Arewa, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Chief Judge of the FCT High Court, Justice Ishaq Bello, has declined an application by a convict seeking the commutation of his death sentence to life imprisonment. The court turned down the application on the grounds that the convict had not met the conditions stipulated in the new Correctional Centres Act. Femi Okeowo has details.
On the 10th of February 2009, one Darlington Eze was found guilty of armed robbery in the Federal Capital Territory. He appealed his conviction at the various appellate levels and was finally convicted by the Supreme Court on the 13th of April 2017. Seeking to exercise his right under the new Correctional Services Act of 2019, which seeks to decongest the nation's correctional centers and encourage good behavior and true reformation of convicts, counsel to the convict approached the FCT High Court for a commutation of his sentence. Section 12(2)(c) of the Act says that the court may commute the death sentence to life imprisonment if, after 10 years of conviction, the convict is found to be of good behavior. But Justice Ishaq Bello turned down the application, saying that the computation of time after conviction is from the final sentence by the Supreme Court and not the court of first instance, which makes it just 3 years after conviction. He, however, encouraged the convict to continue to be of good behavior, as attested to by the prison authorities. In Abuja, Femi Okeowo, NTA News.
Away from court now, the increasing unavailability of safe blood and blood products to meet high demand in Nigeria is among the causes of avoidable deaths in the country. The national coordinator of the National Blood Transfusion Service, Dr. Omale Joseph Amedu, made the revelation in NTA during a courtesy visit. Ngozi Silva, Technical reports.
Blood, they say, is life and has no alternative. This explains the increasing demand for blood transfusion in the treatment of sickle cell diseases, surgeries, traumas, and loss of blood from accidents, conflicts, and insurgency. However, the mandate of the National Blood Transfusion Service to collect, test, process, store, and release blood or blood components when needed for transfusion is facing challenges due to unwillingness of Nigerians to voluntarily donate blood. To bridge the gap and create more awareness on the need for blood donation, as well as stiffen its regulatory framework in order to avoid contaminated and unsafe blood, the National Blood Transfusion Service is seeking partnership with the Nigerian Television Authority.
Collaboration on advocacy, public sensitization, and awareness creation on the need for safe, voluntary, non-remunerative blood donation to save lives and emphasize the benefits of regular voluntary blood donations. Favorable media report from NTA to amplify the message of voluntary blood donation.
The public broadcaster will surely collaborate and support you because it is for the good of the country. I assure you that we have multiple platforms we are going to make available to those platforms.
With this partnership, it is hoped that the attainment of the 1 million Safe Blood Units initiative will be actualized in no distant time. In Abuja, Ngozi Silva, Technical, NTA News.
For Nigeria to totally control the transmission of HIV in the country, about 75 billion naira is required annually to put 1.5 million people on treatment. The Director General, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Dr. Gambo Aliyu, said this in Abuja while presenting the first edition of the 2020 HIV fact sheet to journalists. Basi Ita Ekbank reports.
With the current 1.3% HIV prevalence in Nigeria, the fact sheet shows that 13 persons out of 1,000 people randomly tested for HIV are positive.
By the time we succeed in identifying over 90% of people who have HIV in our midst and put them on these life-saving drugs, we are confident that transmission, person-to-person transmission, will drastically drop.
About $6.2 billion had been spent to identify and treat 60% of the people living with HIV between 2005 and 2018, with about $5 billion coming from international donors.